Unrelated, because this is important. This is about giving children guidance. You are the internet expert, and we're talking about the metaverse. A lot of people didn't even know what meta was this time last year because it probably didn't exist. It's the new name for the Facebook empire, isn't it?
It is, and I think a lot of people still are confused about what metaverse actually means and how it relates to them and how they could potentially benefit from the move that Facebook and other organizations, it's important to note, are moving towards. But in a nutshell, for listeners listening in this morning, metaverse is a virtual world. That's basically what it is, where people can socialize, work and play. Now, we know for a long time, and we've had many conversations on your show, Frank, we're all using social media to socialize. But many of us are starting to use these virtual spaces now to work and play. And Zuckerberg and others like himself believe that this is the future of the internet. This is where the internet is moving, and our virtual lives will become more seamlessly integrated with our real lives. So we all have a virtual life now, and that's going to become more seamlessly integrated with our real lives.
So how will I see that in tangible examples of my virtual life intertwining with my reality? It's like I sometimes find it hard to grasp.
It is hard to grasp, but it's hard to grasp for many people, even myself at my age. But we've got children now growing up that are already immersed in these virtual worlds. And we've had conversations before, Frank, about places like Fortnite or spaces like Fortnite and places like Roblox and Minecraft and those types of online spaces which children have been using for a long time. So many of our young people now growing up today, my own kids included, are well versed in these virtual spaces. It becomes a little bit difficult for us to comprehend how we can actually use them, but use them we will be doing. And COVID-19 is an interesting example because it has excelled the development of these virtual worlds, particularly in the world of work. And we've got even examples here in Northern Ireland, which is really interesting to look at. We have Workshore, for example, that facilitates co-working anywhere, anytime, and they've set up a virtual workspace using technology called VRpark. So that's a really interesting example. If you're somebody who maybe works remotely, maybe you can't come into the office, you're finding that a little bit isolated, well, you can use a piece of technology called VRpark, and you can join the Workshore virtual workspace where you can collaborate and you can meet other like-minded people who might be in similar situations like you. So there's an example of how people can use those types of spaces.
But is it more than like the Zoom meeting? Is it more visual, more tangible than that?
Of course, it's much more than the Zoom meeting. And we've heard that term before, and I think we spoke about it on your show before, about people are becoming zoomed out. They've got Zoom fatigue now happening because we've all now found that we've had to use these different technologies to enable meetings and conferences and meetups and those types of things. The virtual world is much more immersive. And, you know, we've seen the rollout of virtual headsets. You know, this isn't actually something that's new. Google, for example, tried to roll out Google Glasses a couple of years ago, which didn't actually take off. And the reason it probably didn't take off is because the technology was still relatively new. We don't have, every home across Northern Ireland doesn't have a VR headset, but that's something that we're probably going to see in the future, where more and more of us are going to be using these virtual headsets to immerse ourselves in these virtual worlds. And this is something that Facebook is trying to drive forward, using AI, AR and VR, where we spend our time engaging in these virtual spaces rather than in the physical world.
So if I'm sitting at home and I've 70 colleagues and they're in a variety of other homes and some of them are in the office, if I put on my headset, will I see around the office? Will I see around their front room? How much? It just sounds slightly intrusive, for want of a better term. How much will I be allowed to see on those headsets?
Well, I'll give you an example. Again, the example that I mentioned here in Northern Ireland, and I've been actually experimenting with VRpark, with Workshore, and it's been really interesting because I come into my office and there's still not people in the office at the moment, but I can actually log on to the virtual office that Workshore are providing. I've got my own avatar. I've created my own basically avatar of what I look like, what I would wear, what my face would look like. And what I do is I go into the virtual workspace. Now, even in this virtual workspace, I have my own office. that I can go in, I can sit down, I can close the door. People can come in. Other people who are members of that community can actually come in, have conversations. A couple of weeks ago, they ran an event, a virtual event, where we all went over to the main conference room, and I gave a short talk on 5 things that your business needs to think about when it comes to cybersecurity. And everybody was sitting around the desk. It was a virtual world. I was standing up in front of the audience presenting the information. So that'll give you a little bit of example about how immersive this all is.
So the people that are looking in, are they seeing you talk, or are they seeing your little avatar talk?
They're seeing my little avatar talk, but they're hearing my voice. So they can see, they can stand up, they can nod their head, they can ask questions, they can switch on their microphone, and I can see their little avatar, and we can engage virtually in that type of space without actually going anywhere. We're immersing ourselves in this virtual world, and this is something that our young people have been doing for many, many years now. When it comes to things like Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft, they're growing up in these virtual worlds. They're using these technologies, but they're also trading currencies as well, where we've seen a lot of these now virtual currencies starting to become a thing where you can trade and you can buy things within these virtual spaces. It is very exciting. There is also a flip side and a downside to all of this. Some of the issues you mentioned earlier on, safety and privacy becomes a thing that we all need to think about. So we have to shine the spotlight in on larger organizations like Facebook and others and see what the end result is, and really how this is going to impact our privacy and our safety. And of course, as an online safety professional, that's something that I'm keen to find out a little bit more about.
How vain can you be when you're creating your own avatar? Because we know what you look like because you appear on TV, Wayne. You've got you're a pretty cool guy, and I presume your avatar is sort of male modelly. Could I develop one like that, or you have to stick to the rules?
Well, you basically can choose your own avatar. You create your own avatar from scratch, effectively. You choose your body type, your style of clothing that you like to wear, whether you've got any facial hair, glasses, your eye color, whether you wear a baseball hat, any sort of hats, even right down to your shoes that you wear on your feet. And again, this isn't sort of new. Snapchat has been doing this for a while with Bitmoji, where on your Snapchat account you can create your own avatar. So people are starting to create their own avatars, a virtual representation, I guess, of what they look like in the real world. Of course, some people are going to game the system potentially, but for the most part, that's where this is all moving. It's interesting, it's exciting, and this all is sort of filtering into the future of work. And where is the future of work really going to be? Do we need to go into that physical office? Can we use more of these virtual platforms and technologies? And it's going to be interesting to see where this virtual world actually ends up. But it's exciting, and it's not new, and it's been around for a while. So it's early days really with Facebook at the moment. Facebook's looking for more collaboration, and according to them, they don't want it to be just one company spearheading this. They want to bring in collaboration across industry and experts and governments and even regulators to get it right. So that's an interesting change of tone from Facebook. And some people will say maybe this is a PR spin from Facebook, or rebrand, so to speak. But if they're serious about this and they're going to bring in these other experts and governments and regulators to get it right, maybe that's going to solve some of the problems that we've had discussions about in the past when it comes to things like privacy and safety. Certainly going to be an interesting one to watch. It's
a never, ever developing world. And I suppose the most simple use of the metaverse is really the gigs that are being done online. That's an example of it, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're seeing a lot. Especially through lockdown. My own son, has been learning to play guitar for a number of years. He does his lessons now with his guitar teacher via Zoom, and they're doing that and they have been doing that for a number of months. We've seen musicians now doing these live gigs online. We've seen a lot of that happening where people are really starting to look for innovative ways to use the technology to be able to continue to make a living, I suppose, even as well. And that's really important. If it wasn't for this technology, we may have been in a different situation. So the technology does certainly provide those opportunities. It's about looking for innovative ways to use it. I think we're a little bit away from this completely changing a lot of even our society in some respects, because the technology just isn't there yet. Things like connectivity is a problem in certain areas. We have this digital divide where people maybe can't afford the means to access some of this technology. And we've seen Zuckerberg and others talking about making the internet free for people. We've been looking at things like in Africa where they're putting up balloons into the sky to make, Africa as a continent more connectivity. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I think we're a little bit away. But nonetheless, there are plans being made to bring us all into that virtual world. Me and you included, Frank.
Yeah. And just one final point on the paying for what you do on the internet. If people are watching you and you put up some form of paywall, for example, if Elton John's putting on a concert, he's not going to do it for free. So you have to pay to see him. It must be less embarrassing if no one tries to buy their way through your paywall than it would be to book the likes of the Ulster Hall and no one turns up.
Well, exactly. And the thing about it is, there has been a fundamental shift now. More and more people are happy to pay for access to content online, and that's the challenge, I suppose, that many of the mainstream media have had. Because the internet that you and I know that I grew up with, for the most part, was free. You could access pretty much anything for free. There was lots of information, lots of content, things that you could get access to, and then we've seen a shift. Because obviously this stuff needs paid for. People need paid for creating this content, making it available. So there is more people now much more comfortable with buying access to content. I mean, again, from my own online safety point of view, to make this viable and to be able to do this, ongoing, and to put real good effort into creating really valuable resources for parents, there has to be a cost associated with that. But again, it's all about providing the value. People are more happy to do that if they find that it's providing value in their lives. And again, people are happy to spend that money in those virtual spaces and online.
Great overview, Wayne. Thank you. Wayne Denner from WayneDenner.com with us here on the U105 phone. And just on the subject of the paywalls, I was having a chat with friends the other day about this. It's very important that you purchase your newspaper online. Less and less people tend to pick them up in shops now, and there are more and more opportunities to pay for the newspaper. It's vital that we keep the highly respected papers alive and give them the vibrancy, or continue to allow them to have the vibrancy that they already